Hello, ladies and gents. So this was released yesterday, I believe it was. I actually didn't even know this was released, but I've had a bunch of comments drop in and go, "You need to talk about this unless you're full of shit or something like this." So I actually don't know even what's in here. So let's take a look. This is the Ray Fisher opening up about Justice League, Joss Whedon and Warner's. I don't believe some of these people are fit for leadership. Now, I have said, and you can go back and look at the videos, I've always said, just open up and actually tell us what happened. Because much like the whole trend of believe all women, I don't just believe people randomly. Okay? I think that, yes, you know, people say there's no smoke without fire and things like this, and some of that is absolutely true. But some of this I just couldn't get behind without actually hearing proper accusations. So I'm hoping that he actually reveals stuff. You know, actually makes firm, clear-cut accusations. That's what I want. Like, and I've always said it. You'll see in the videos. I always say, actually tell us what happened, please. So let's dive into it, ladies and gents. So over the past year, the actor has assailed the filmmaker and studio in harsh but cryptic tweets for what he says was racist and inappropriate conduct. I'm not so indebted to Hollywood that I haven't been willing to put myself out there. Now, again, this is one of the really important things to note is, and this is what I said when this all first happened, was when someone says abuse, right? Abuse is subjective. It's not a finite thing. You cannot clear-cutly say this is abuse, right? Because it's subjective. What I deem to be abuse versus what you deem to be abuse, outside of the bounds of the law, can be purely subjective. And it is purely subjective. And this is why I said he needs to talk. Just to say there's abuse on set. Christopher Nolan famously doesn't let anyone sit down on set. Someone would deem that to be abuse. So again, it's subjective. Hence why I wanted him to actually say stuff. Hence why I won't ever actually believe anyone who just broad strokes their accusations. So anyway, Ray Fisher is finally ready to talk. Ever since June 2020, when he fired off a tweet accusing Joss Whedon of gross, abusive, unprofessional and completely unacceptable conduct on the set of Justice League, the 33-year-old actor has used social media and a series of interviews to lob serious allegations of racism behaviour and a cover-up at Warner Brothers. And again, unprofessionalism is, I mean, again, all of this is purely subjective. So let's see what he thinks, right? And then we can make our own judgment on it. So for Fisher, who plays Cyborg in the film, the issue is no longer so much what happened on the set in 2017 after director Zack Snyder was replaced by Joss Whedon, though he's ready to explain that too. His unrelenting focus in recent months has been the way executives first at the Warner Film Studio and then at its parent Warner Media handled allegations raised by himself and others. So instantly that's a red flag to me. For Fisher, who plays Cyborg in the film, the issue is no longer what happened in 2017, but more so how they handled the allegations. So are you downplaying the original allegations? I'm going to get so much hate for this, but I'm sorry, that's a red flag. It doesn't sound that abusive and that gross or that unprofessional if you're willing to let that slide over how it was handled. Unless, of course, how it was handled was far worse on the scale of abuse. Maybe. I don't know. Trying to give you the benefit of the doubt here, Ray. So Warner Media has previously said that remedial action was taken as a result of its investigation, but has not elaborated. It doesn't have to. A spokesperson tells THR that for privacy and legal reasons, a policy is to not publicly disclose the findings or the results of an investigation. That is actually perfectly reasonable. Catherine Forrest, it says a former federal judge. Yeah, but they still reached that pinnacle of being a federal judge, so therefore you're still on that level. Who conducted the Warner Media probe, tells THR in a statement that in interviews with more than 80 witnesses, she found no credible support for claims of racial animus or racial insensitivity. A Warner Media spokesperson notes that the company made extraordinary effort to accommodate Mr. Fisher's concerns about the investigation and to ensure its fullness and fairness, and has complete confidence in the investigation process and Forrest's conclusions. Now remember, and this is really key, even though people who dislike the video won't listen to this part, this former federal judge that says there is no credible support for claims of racial animus, this same person is the same person that Ray Fisher used a soundbite of to back up his claims. He was using her to legitimize his complaints. Now, if it's good enough for him, why is it now suddenly not good enough that she's saying, well, no, actually, there is no basis for that? So again, that becomes the grey area. But again, that will just go in and out of one ear for a lot of people. I know that. Now, what's this as a backstory? Why is this important? Fisher was raised by a single mother and his grandmother in Lawnside, New Jersey, a community that he notes was the first self-governing black municipality north of the Mason-Dixon line. He says he felt a new sense of urgency to speak out when the pandemic hit and the Black Lives Matter protesters took to the streets. Okay, so some backstory, I guess. I did say that, actually, when it came out. I was like, well, this is what he's saying. He's saying it because of all the BLM stuff. So anyway, to Fisher, who had few screen credits, playing the half-man, half-machine cyborg, the first black superhero in the DC film universe, was both a huge career break and a major responsibility. Justice League was released in 2017, the year before Marvel broke ground with Black Panther. He was mindful that the film was overseen almost entirely by white executives and filmmakers. Okay. That sounds racist. Why does it matter that it was overseen by white executives and filmmakers? That has no bearing. Someone's skin colour doesn't change. What? They might be fantastic filmmakers. They might be fantastic executives. Very strange that you would bring that up as an issue, Ray. Very strange that THR... Well, it's not strange. Like, we live in a world where that's fine. So, sorry. While Fisher has dropped details and named names, outsiders have struggled to understand, how did Whedon incur his anger? Did Fisher really decline to participate in an investigation that was launched in response to his own complaints, as Warner's claimed in September? Was Fisher fighting a righteous battle or a... So now, in many hours of conversation, Fisher tells his side, okay? Much of the previous reluctance to spell out the story, he says, arose because he didn't, and still doesn't, want to expose the identities of others who shared their stories with him and investigators. I'm not looking to have any witnesses lose their jobs. Right, okay. So is this about your accusations, or is this about things which came out in an investigation? Because if it is, then that's not what you claimed. And this is the problem. You made those initial claims. You're not revealing what the initial claims were because of other things that came out. Why? It's not relevant to what you had initially claimed. So odd. Those include some who wouldn't seem to have any worries about job security, Gal Gadot and Jason Momoa. Others who were not involved in Justice League also spoke to Fisher, and in some cases the investigators about experiences with Whedon and with Jeff Johns, who was co-chairman of DC Films and a producer on the film. They include Charisma Carpenter, who recently wrote on social media of Whedon's alleged abusiveness on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and individuals who had worked with Johns on Sci-Fi's Krypton. Fisher got Warner's to start an investigation more than 2 years after the first version of the film was released, but he soon found the process to be suspicious. The studio and its parent company seemed to be focused on protecting top executives, he says. The process moved in starts and stops, and when he felt forced to ramp up his public protest, the studio responded with what Fisher calls a deliberate smear. Warner's maintains it has done everything necessary to address Fisher's concerns. He still wants an apology. Okay. So when are we actually going to get to anything that he actually says? Because this is... Nothing's being revealed here. Still, like, we're 9 minutes into this video, nothing's been revealed. Sorry, ladies and gents. In May 2017, Fisher was walking into a movie in New York when he got a call from Zack Snyder that left him stunned. Snyder was leaving Justice League, citing his daughter's suicide. Sources say Snyder was under enormous pressure at the time. The studio was unhappy with the reception and box office performance of his previous film. That's fair enough, because it wasn't very good. Like, it didn't perform very well. So they now insisted on a lighter touch. Warner's also asked Snyder to produce a 2-hour cut, which he had a wrenching time delivering, though eventually did. Ultimately, Snyder left, and Whedon, who had written and directed Marvel's The Avengers, and had already been brought in to help brighten Justice League's tone, took the helm. The Justice League that Fisher had signed up for was a far cry from the film that Whedon ended up finishing. Snyder had Fisher talk at length with screenwriter Chris Terrio before there was even a script. Zack and I always considered Cyborg's story to be the heart of the movie, Terrio tells THR. He has the most pronounced character arc of any of the heroes. He has the only character arc, and it's only towards the end. Beginning from a place of despair and ending with a feeling that he is whole and that he is loved. And Terrio says he and Snyder took the portrayal of the first black superhero in the DC film universe very seriously, adding, with a white writer and white director, we both thought having the perspective of an actor of colour was really important, and Ray is really good with story and character, so we became a partner in creating Victor. Okay, that's fair enough, but that also seems to indicate that Ray Fisher got pretty butthurt when Joss Whedon said, well, we have to minimise things. So when new filming proceeded under Whedon, says Fisher, he came to feel that he had to explain some of the most basic points of what would be offensive to the black community. Okay? But you don't speak for the black community, you speak for some parts of it from your own experience, right? It's like I don't speak for the entirety of the white race. Like, that's just nonsense. After Fisher's reps were told that Whedon planned to make major revisions to the film, he flew from New Jersey to meet with the filmmaker in LA. When the two met at a bar, Fisher says Whedon was tiptoeing around the fact that everything was changing. That sounds quite courteous, to be perfectly honest. As he left the meeting, Fisher was handed the revised script, which he read twice on the plane back. Gone was Cyborg's traumatic story, his relationship with his mother. There was barely a relationship in the Snyder Cut, so what are you talking about there? Like, there was barely a relationship there. We didn't see anything, really. Whose loving scenes with her son were eliminated. What, like the 2 minutes at the start? Come on. This is the problem. Now we've seen the other version, you can compare it directly to what's been said. I didn't perceive that to be a massive part of the story. The loving scenes. What loving scenes? There wasn't much. She goes to the school, and then she drives him home. Okay. She's there in the football field. Yeah, we get it. You hate your dad. Like, it's not. You're just using that as a leverage to show you that you hate your father. I thought that was really, really quite badly played out, to be honest. It's like the I hate my dad trope. Like, okay, we get it. So anyway, as was the accident that killed her and led to his transformation. The material was later restored in the Snyder Cut version of the film, the streamed on HBO Max. It represents that his parents are two genius-level black people. We don't see that every day. Does it? I didn't get... What? I did not get the fact that his mother was a genius from looking at the Snyder Cut. Did you? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. I did not get that. Whedon sent out an email asking for questions, comments, or fulsome praise, but Fisher says it became clear all he was looking for was the fulsome praise. Trying to strike a jocular tone, Fisher responded that he mourned the loss of the cyborg material that was moving on. He said he had notes to avoid issues in terms of representation of the character, but in a call with Whedon, Fisher says he had barely started to talk when the filmmaker cut him off. It feels like I'm taking notes right now, and I don't like taking notes from anybody, not even Robert Downey Jr. Other sources on the project say Whedon was similarly dismissive of Godot and Momoa when they questioned new lines. Whedon declined to comment for this piece. Well, that's not uncommon of a filmmaker. If they have a vision that they've been specifically brought on to give, courtesy of the studio and the executives above them, they are going to be dismissive. Now, it's not to say that it's right, but it's also, that's not abuse, ladies and gents. Sorry. That's just business. You don't often see a lackey talking back to a manager, do you? Yes, you will have some managers that are more than happy to collaborate on certain things, but then there are absolutely some managers and bosses that will go, no, I've spoken now, you shut up and do your job. Like, I'm sorry. I'm sure that will offend a lot of people, but sorry, that is a fact of life, and it's a harsh fact of life. And when some people get that, you'll probably live a much better life, because you'll stop being just pissing and moaning about crap. Anyway, Fisher turned to Johns, who says he had presented himself as a kind of mediator, but Fisher says his ultimate response was, we can't make Joss mad. Publicist Howard Bragman, who represents Johns, denied that, but says Johns recalls suggesting that any creative pitches should happen when Joss Whedon was not preoccupied, so he would be most receptive. Okay, both statements are fine. We can't make Joss mad. Well, you can't, because he was brought on specifically. Got to remember, this is in the height of like Joss Whedon being, I'm on the Avengers, mate. Like Avengers fame, yeah, like massive movies. And again, I think Joss Whedon's a dirty dog anyway. Like, we know stuff about him. He's a bit of a prick. But both things can be true, right? He can be a prick, but he can also be someone who produces very famous films, and he can also be someone that a studio wouldn't want to make mad because they want to use him to capitalize on some of that. Like, both things can be true. Sorry, I'm not seeing the issue right now. Once Whedon got involved, Fisher says that Johns told him that it was problematic that Cyborg smiled only twice in the movie. Fisher says he later learned from a witness who participated in the investigation that Johns and other top executives, including then DC Films co-chairman John Berg and Warner's studio chief Toby Emmerich, had discussions in which they said that they could not have an angry black man at the centre of the film. Well, no, because that is a racial stereotype, and it's one that actually people really do hate. You know, you ever heard the angry black woman meme? You know, it's a stereotype that people don't like. They think it's really racist. So it would be natural for people, especially woke-ass goddamn film studios, to be on edge about any racial stereotype. This is the left eating itself. This is this progressive attitude finally realising that the more and more you push this crap, right, it comes back and bites you in the ass. Stereotypes exist because they're real, right? Stereotypes are real. The moment you start shying away from that and saying, well, that's just racism, okay? But then you can't get true representation if some stereotypes are real. You get people extra on edge. And I'm sorry, but an angry black man is a racial stereotype. And it's something which many people have said, I hate that. So I get why the studio was like that. I'm sorry, I'm still not on their side. I'm still not on Ray Fisher's side at this point. And nothing new has been added. Nothing new has been said yet. We're 17 minutes in. This is going to be a long-ass video. I'm so sorry. Anyway, John's reps responded that once the chairman of the studio mandated a brighter tone for the film, all further discussions centered on adding joy and hopefulness to all 6 superheroes. There are always conversations about avoiding any stereotypes of race, gender, or sexuality. Yeah, of course there is. That's what you get, progressives. That's what you get. Anyway, Johns told Fisher he should play the character less like Frankenstein and more like the kind-hearted Quasimodo. Nothing wrong with that. Fisher says that in order to demonstrate the look he wanted, Johns dipped his shoulder in what struck Fisher as a servile posture. That's Fisher's issue. To Fisher, and also that is literally what Quasimodo does. He walks with a hunchback. That is literally how Quasimodo walks. But you're saying that's racism. Really? Grow up. To Fisher, there was a big difference between portraying a character who was born with a disability versus one who had been transformed by trauma, and he felt Cyborg was a kind of modern-day Frankenstein. I didn't have any intention of playing him as a jovial, cathedral-cleaning individual. Okay, well, that's fine, but you have been told from your bosses you should probably do that. Sounds like you're not a very good employee. So John's representatives responded by saying Jeff gave a note using a fictional character as an example of a sympathetic man who is unhappy and has an inclination to hide from the world, but one whom the audience roots for because he has a courageous heart. Perfectly fine statement. Fisher told Johns it might be one thing for a non-black person to write a character for a comic, but it was another for a black actor to portray that character on screen. It was like he was assuming how black people would respond rather than taking the advice from the only black person, as far as I know, with any kind of creative impact on the project. That just sounds like your butt hurt they weren't taking your advice. Fisher says Johns did not yield. He doesn't have to. That was the last creative conversation about anything that Jeff and I had. I knew I was on my own, Fisher says. Johns' representative denies that he ever dismissed any comments, adding that Fisher knew Johns, whose spokesperson requested that he be identified as Lebanese American, had evolved traditionally all-white DC properties like Shazam, Justice Society of America, and others into diverse groups of heroes. Yep, there's no lie there. So Justice League producer Charles Roven, a veteran on DC superhero films dating back to Batman Begins in 2005, says, I fully empathise with Ray that his character arc was significantly altered and shortened. I've also collaborated with Jeff over many years and found him to be a gracious and humble man. Jeff took it upon himself to put Cyborg in the Justice League comics in the first place and was written more about the character than any other individual except for the creator. He loves the character Cyborg. There's no lie there. Anyway, all these tensions were playing out during an extremely stressful time at the studio. AT&T's $85 billion acquisition of Time Warner, which was announced in October 2016 but didn't close until June 2018, was still pending. Justice League was a $300 million proposition and it was troubled. Warner's had not been able to match Disney's consistent success with Marvel movies, and Fisher felt that some of the studio executives' decision making was driven by fear of losing their jobs. It's a business. That's fine. The tension only escalated when the issue of having Cyborg say "booyah" arose. Oh my god. I said that before, didn't I? And people were like, it's definitely not because of booyah. Yeah, it is. That phrase had become a signature of the character thanks to the animated Teen Titans show, but the character had never said it in the comics or in the original script. Fisher says that Johns had approached Snyder about including the line, but the director didn't want any catchphrases. He managed the situation by putting the word on some signs in his version of the film as an Easter egg, but Johns' reps says the entire studio believed the booyah line was a fun moment of synergy. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with trying to get people on board who are fans specifically of the cartoon by using a catchphrase they know and recognise. These fucking people annoyed about everything. Fisher says he didn't see the word in itself as an issue, but he thought it played differently in a live-action film than the animated series, and he thought of black characters in pop culture with defining phrases. Gary Coleman's "What You Talking About, Willis," Jimmy Walker's "Dynamite," and no one else in the film had a catchphrase. He says it seemed weird to have the only black character say that. That's your race. That you are projecting that, Ray. You are projecting that. In the film, there are many things which are iconic to each character in the film. And also, what line from garbage Aquaman bro dude was in there that everyone hated? My man! Yeah, it's not a catchphrase, but it's equally as cringe-inducing. Makes me want to stab my eyes out and cut my tongue off and shove it up my fucking... Like, seriously. Grow up, man. Grow up. So anyway, with reshoots underway, Fisher says Whedon raised the issue again. Jeff tells me Cyborg has a catchphrase. He told him. Fisher says he expressed his objections and it seemed the matter was dropped until Berg, co-chairman of DC Films and a producer on the project, took him to dinner. This is one of the most expensive movies Warner's has ever made, Berg said, according to Fisher. What if the CEO of AT&T has a son or daughter, and that son or daughter wants Cyborg to say booyah in the movie, and we don't have a take on that? I could lose my job. Fisher responded that he knew if he filmed the line, it would end up in the movie, and he expressed skepticism that the film's fate rested on Cyborg saying booyah. I mean, that sounds quite nice of Berg, to be fair. He took him to dinner and he explained it. That sounds quite nice, to be fair. But he shot the take as he arrived on set. He says Whedon stretched out his arms and said a line from Hamlet in a mocking tone. "Speak the speech, I pray you, as I pronounced it to you," Fisher replied. "Joss, don't. I'm not in the mood," as he left in the set after saying just that one phrase for the cameras. He says Whedon called out, "Nice work, Ray." Nothing wrong with that. It just sounds like Ray Fisher was being a bit of a bitch there. Even before that line was shot, Fisher's agent had called Warner Studio Chief Emmerich to raise concerns about what was happening on set after Fisher arrived in Los Angeles for additional photography in summer 2017. Johns asked him to come to the DC offices in Burbank. When he met in a conference room, Fisher said he had apologised to Whedon for his part in the conflict, which he had done in the hope of preventing a real rupture with the DC team. Johns responded that having agents called Emmerich was just not cool. Fisher recalls, he said, "I consider us to be friends," which he knew we were not, and I just don't want you to make a bad name for yourself in the business. Fisher took that as a threat. No, that's friendly advice from someone that doesn't know anything about the business, to be fair. John's rep says he never made a threat, but told Fisher that creative differences were not normally taken to the head of a film studio by an actor's agent. Where's the lie? Fisher was not the only Justice League star who was unhappy. Sources say Whedon clashed with all the stars of the film, including Jeremy Irons, and one Justice League star ended up taking her complaints not only to the head of the film studio, but also to the chairman of Warner Brothers. A knowledgeable source says Godot had multiple concerns with the revised version of the film, including issues about her character being more aggressive than her character in Wonder Woman. She wanted to make the character flow from one movie to the next. She's incredibly angry in Zack Snyder's Justice League. I don't understand what they're talking about here. Anyway, the biggest clash, sources say, came when Whedon pushed Godot to record lines she didn't like, threatened to harm Godot's career, and disparaged Wonder Woman director Patty Jenkins. And that's not good, of course not. So this comes to abuse, right? This is what I would say is abuse. Not asking Godot to record lines she didn't like. That's her being a prima donna. Threatening someone's career, yeah, absolutely. Actually threatening someone's career, actually disparaging a director, yeah, those things are, abusive. While Fisher declines to discuss any of what transpired with Godot, a witness on the production who later spoke to investigators says that after one clash, Joss was bragging that he's had it out with Gal. He told her he's the writer and she's going to shut up and say the lines, and he can make her look incredibly stupid in this movie. A knowledgeable source says Godot and Jenkins went to battle, culminating in a meeting with then Warner's chairman Kevin Tsujihara. Asked for comment, Godot says in a statement, "I had my issues with Whedon and Warner Brothers handled it in a timely manner." Perfectly reasonable. Anyway, 3 months after Justice League hit theatres, Whedon exited Warner's Batgirl project. Batgirl is such an exciting project, and Warner's DC such collaborative and supportive partners that it took me months to realise I really didn't have a story. Where's the actual claims and reveals? Some people were telling me this was going to be groundbreaking and massive. We're nearly 30 minutes in, nothing's fucking been said. When Justice League opened in 2017, the film was panned. It has a 40% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, blah, 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 blah. But Whedon was still part of Warner Media Universe, and in July 2018, a few months after he left Batgirl, HBO greenlighted his drama The Nevers, straight to the series. But in November 2020, just a couple of weeks before Warner Media said it had taken remedial steps after its investigation into Justice League, Whedon left that project too. HBO chief Casey Bloys has said that there were no complaints about Whedon's behaviour on that series. This time, Whedon said he was not up to the physical challenges of making such a huge show during a global pandemic. We're parted ways with Joss Whedon. Okay. After Justice League, Fisher went on to play Mahershala Ali's son in the 3rd season of True Detective, which he calls a great experience, but in the coming months he would hear fresh reports about what had gone on behind the scenes of Justice League, including the angry black man conversation and other allegations involving Johns. 2 individuals who worked on Sci-Fi's Krypton series talked to Fisher about events that had taken place on the series. So, okay, so basically, you're not going to like me for this. What Fisher has went on Justice League is massively subjective, but now we're moving into what other people have told him, and he's just took it upon himself to be some sort of martyr for it. I don't understand why, but these are no longer his experiences that we're talking about, seemingly anyway. We've heard about his experiences. Sorry, a lot of that's projection. Racial stereotypes exist, saying we don't want an angry black man as the centre of a film. Well, we can't have that because that would probably piss some people off, some progressives off. Nothing wrong with that, sorry. You thinking that saying Booyah is racist? Again, that's your problem, mate. Anyway, multiple sources tell THR that the show's creators were passionate about doing some non-traditional casting, and that Regé-Jean Page, who would go on to become a breakout star of Bridgerton, had auditioned for the role of Superman's grandfather. But Johns, who was overseeing the project, said Superman could not have a black grandfather. The creators also... There's nothing wrong with saying that. He's white. There's nothing wrong with saying you can't have a black grandfather because he's white. Like, that's how biology works. What are you talking about? Fuck me. The creators also wanted to make one superhero character, Adam Strange, gay or bisexual, but sources say Johns vetoed the idea. Again, there's nothing wrong with that either. People, right? People need to realise that just chucking in a character and going, oh, but he's gay now, can be offensive to the community you're trying to appease. You do realise that. So John's going, well, we probably shouldn't just make some rando gay for the sake of it, is not a bad business move. It's not bad at all. Now, that's someone that clearly understands how this crap happens. Oh, we'll just make, Superman's grandfather black. Like, for what? For what reason? Because you just want to. That's not a good enough reason to do it. You're literally... And again... People will hate me for saying it, but it's tokenization. You're being used as a token right now. That is a token black guy. There's no logical reason in the story that he would be black. You've all tuned out by this point anyway, to be fair. I don't know, say some horrendous stuff right now and still tune out. Anyway, there was some defense from John's reps. Nothing issue about there. But they say specifically, Jeff celebrates and supports LGBTQ characters, including Batwoman, who in 2016 was reintroduced as LGBTQ in a comic book series co-written by Johns. No lie. And he adds, for the role of Superman's grandfather, the rep says Johns believed fans expected the character to look like a young Henry Cavill. Just, again, nothing wrong with that statement. Anyway, several sources who spoke to Fisher around this time were willing to talk to a Warner's investigator. Among them were Nadra Tucker. Ha! This is the idiot on Superman and Lois. Well, we know what she thinks, and that's pathetic anyway. Wow, Christ. So I'm looking to see what actually happened here. Right, okay. Fisher says that the assertion that a black man would not have his own agency is just as racist as the conversations was having about the Justice League reshoots. I've been underestimated at every turn during this process, and that is what has led to this point. Had they taken me as seriously as they should have from the beginning, they would not have made as many foolish mistakes as they did in the process. What? Okay. So he's saying that it's now racist that they didn't believe him and downplayed what he was talking about. That's such a nonsense outlook. Oh, it's racist that we're not going to take you seriously. No, it's probably that your claims are nonsense. Booyah is racist. Why is it racist? Because I think so. Fuck me. The people that believe this, I'm sorry. I can't believe I got comments going, unless you're full of shit, you need to make a video about this. What am I making a video about? It's half an hour of crap. A thumbs up if you're still here. This should have been a live stream. So anyway, you know, he then removed... Again, I'd like to take a moment to force... This is what he said. I'd like to take a moment to forcefully retract every bit of this statement. Whedon's on-set behaviour had been gross, abusive, unprofessional, and completely unacceptable. That was all subjective, and he's just revealed that it was all subjective by what he said since. Anyway, I don't see anything else going on here. So Berg told Variety it was categorically untrue that we enabled any unprofessional behaviour. Fisher was upset about saying booyah, a well-known saying of Cyborg in the animated series. Well, we know that now. He's come out and said that anyway. I'd like nothing else has been said here. Literally nothing. This is now him just saying that he wasn't taken seriously and he's crying about it. Well, a lot of the stuff wasn't going to be taken seriously, mate. It just goes on and on and on. This is garbage. All you did was make very public claims that you couldn't back up because they're subjective. And then you're like, right, other people come to me, tell me all of your issues, I'll be a martyr for you. And that's fine, but that's why you're downplaying what the initial issues were. And this is what I've always said. Tell us what the initial issues were. You used this woman to legitimize your own claims, and now you're saying she's not credible. You're an idiot. Sorry. None of this flies with me.